እግዚአብሔር ጸባኦት አምላክነ
Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. May His never-ending mercy be with all of us today. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This program is brought to you by the Mahibere Kidusan Broadcast Service American Center English service here in the Washington, D.C. studio. My name is EOTCMK and I'll be your host for today. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today I'm very excited to introduce our very own Young Orthodox Tewahedo Christians, or as you may know them as YLTC. I want to start off by saying thank you for taking your time to join us today. We're very lucky to have you here with us. If you don't mind starting off telling us your name and what your occupation is.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for having us. My name is Nebiyu Shakur, and I work as an emergency room physician here in Virginia, and just finished my residency, finished my medical school, then my residency a few months ago, and currently working in a community hospital.
And my name is Tion Haile. I'm an information security analyst, cybersecurity analyst here in the Columbia, Maryland region. I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, in May 2020.
Thank you guys so much for that. I wanted to just start off with what is YOTC? Like what is its mission and its goals?
All right. So, in essence, our mission is to spread the gospel according to the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo faith, and mostly to the youth and the young adults, young both in age and in spirit, in English. We work to provide accessible resources to help others to connect to Christ, and we want to deliver the authentic message of salvation in English. For people residing outside of Ethiopia, and mostly by strictly adhering to the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church doctrine, canon, and tradition. You see?
YLTC, being for the youth, we provide an environment for those who struggle to connect with the church due to culture barriers, language barriers, if they don't understand Amharic real, and if English is their first language. YLTC is here to create that bridge and create that, making sure that we fill in that gap. So people understand the faith in a language that they're comfortable with. We aim to be completely relatable, so that way young Ethiopian Americans in the area and even outside of our area, this is for everyone. So they can, hear the faith, just kind of feel relatable and feel that they can connect with the church despite the fact that they may not understand, may not relate with the culture.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask how did YOTC start? Like, what are some initial what are the challenges the YOTC faced during the initial phase? I think I remember some of the challenges was like the idea of English itself. Like, how are you guys going to teach our kids English? Like, they're supposed to learn their culture, they're supposed to learn their language. Yeah. And I know that was the biggest problem that you guys had.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, you sort of brought me back in time of yeah, exactly. That's crazy. Like, the way YOTC just started was it was very organic. It was simple conversations. There are people that were passionate about the Orthodox faith, and we were all in our own lives, leading our own lives, and we were sort of called. We had this passion to really, when you find out something that's amazing, what you want to do naturally is share it. But having that passion, there was no outlet at that time. So these group of adults that were very energetic and had that calling of evangelism and fellowship were brought together through these shared interests. This was around 2011, 2012. And like you said, at that time, some of the biggest challenges were people saying, "I can't believe you're teaching in English. Like, how can you do that? How are kids supposed to learn Amharic?" Because that was the and people would go to church literally mostly to learn the language, and no, I mean to learn the faith as well. But the language was so intertwined with it that uh, the parents were, I mean, rightfully to a certain degree, thought, well, if we separate the language from the faith, then there's going to be a lot of things lost. First of all, and secondly, the language. And I think a lot of people really focused on the language, and yeah, people weren't happy initially. They we had some interesting run-ins where we had to say, like, our goal is not to uh, devoid of uh, uh, like the culture from the young generation. That's not really it. It's just at this point they don't know, like a lot of times they don't really think in Amharic, and that's also a problem. Like when you think in a certain language and you're something as important as faith, when that's a second language to you, where it should be part of your identity, that becomes a problem. So those were big issues, big challenges that we faced initially, that we weren't there to destroy. Like our goal was to really spread the beauty of Orthodoxy and the Ethiopian Orthodoxy, and it's sort of sometimes to some people came out as we're trying to destroy things, and we're like, no, that's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread it because it's so beautiful, but it's bottled in, and people need to know, and we can't just expect people to come to us. Like we have to go to people, just like Christ came down to us to towards our level. We have to go to people's levels. And then there were some logistical challenges where we'd put together a service, a conference, like a spiritual conference, and we would not have a venue, or we'd have a venue, but then something would come up, things would go wrong, and so on and so forth. But I would say, like, the biggest thing that we had is like the grace of God. Like we just had so much energy, but we didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't have wisdom or anything like that. Spiritually, we weren't anything, as far as like our spiritual lives were not mature. We were trying, but the grace of God really uh, covered us from a lot of issues, from a lot of things that came up, that kept our energy up, and our drive and our passion continued despite all of these challenges that we faced early on.
See, you want to add anything, or you're all good?
See, I joined YLTC very late. I joined in like 2017. So these are all things that I've heard secondhand about YLTC, and it's come up. But I can say, as someone that came in late, YLTC was very welcoming, and in the goal and the mission, I can attest to that and say that it has been accomplished for me as a newer YLTC member. So I hope that the rest of the youth can also have the same experience that I did. I was very welcomed into YTC, and here I am, 2022, and I'm still here. So,
Yeah, it's very amazing. Dekon Naviu said that they started 2011, 2012, and it's 2022. How many people can say that they followed through and are still here? So it's very amazing that you guys are what things you guys are doing. So like what are some various services the YLTC provides for its followers?
So one of the services that we do on a weekly basis is our Bible study. As you've seen probably on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, we have our weekly Bible studies. We have a course, and we have teachers that alternate every week, and they teach every week. We have our English services that many people know about. Our most recent one was the Peace of Mind English service that happened right before the start of the pandemic, March 2020, and we try to keep our English services current. So our most recent one was about mental health, and we know a lot of the youth struggle with that, and we want to make sure that we have a spiritual outlet with regards to mental health. Not just the science aspect of it, but the spiritual aspect of it very much exists as well. So we wanted to make sure that we have that available for the youth. We have clothing drives that happen often. We have volunteering at soup kitchens. We have our CD that people know about, our English gospel CD that I'm still listening to, and we have that available for everybody.
Okay, thank you for that, Seon. So, I feel like YOTC has changed many lives. When you said that we had the Peace of Mind conference, the place was packed. I mean, I don't know if you guys or the viewers at home saw it, but I feel like things like that has impacted the mental health, has impacted the youth here in America. So, like, what impact has the YOTC made in the youth? You can feel free to give your personal examples if you like.
I can start off.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest challenges today is connecting with the Orthodox faith. There are many things that are, competing for our attention, and maybe if you're in the church, this might not be a glaring issue, but outside of the church, which who we're trying to reach, that's huge. I think YOTC is a group for the youth, by the youth, and one of the biggest things that we do, or we try to do, is to normalize making spirituality and faith the central part of our lives. Normalization is key. I think making confession and communion not only a vital part of life, but a normal and recurrent part of life among the youth is so transformational. I think there's this dangerous belief that confession and communion is for the old, and this is a cultural thing. I think. When I remember when I was starting with YOTC and about to take communion, my mom was shocked. Like, why would you be shocked? Like, but this is a cultural thing where, you do that later in life, but what gets lost, and so you get to that later part of life, is not something you can get back, which is that the spiritual nourishment of having this as part of a central part of our lives. And I think this cultural shift is one of the underlying missions of YOTC. And our group is very family oriented. We're so close because of our fellowship, and because of how we focus on that. We focus on fellowship, and that spirituality has been easier because of this group, this close-knit group. And I don't know, Sion, if you want to add to that, but that's what I would say.
Yes, a more personal experience that I would have with YLTC's impact is the fact that I'm relatable. I'm finally able to feel like, okay, there's people that relate to me. There's people that are Ethiopian American that, maybe don't relate that well with the church, but they still yearn for the Orthodox faith, the true Orthodox faith. And I want that experience. So I would say being able to find an environment for me, personally. Another thing is I created friends within the church, and that was the most important thing for me because growing up, most of my friends are from school, and they may not be within the faith, but having an actual friendship outside of Bible study where I can keep in contact with people and have accountability partners where we can ask, how's your spiritual life? Have you been doing confession? Have you been doing communion? And just having that conversation with people is something that I didn't really have before YOTC. So that's probably the biggest impact that has happened with me, and I can maybe say other people can relate with that as well. Just having friendship, having a family that is within the Orthodox Church, that you guys can hold each other accountable for things, making sure you're not missing church, making sure you're not too far away from confession, and yeah, just having that environment is very important. And again, that has helped, like Nebi, you said, that has helped Orthodoxy be the center of my life, where it's revolving around me, and I'm revolving around it, and I'm making sure that everything I do is being traced back to Christ and being traced back to the church. So, very grateful for that.
And one thing that's very interesting to me, or I sort of a caveat, an additional icing on the cake type of thing, where we do this. We were sort of centered in Christ, and our life is sort of structured that way. And then we see the impact globally. We do see others that are really benefiting from, like YOTC Sunday classes, learning about the faith because of the resources that are available. We hear a lot. We get a lot of messages on social media from so many parts of the world. It's amazing that the reach that social media has. You can use it when we're able to use it in a positive sense, that it sort of spreads our reach. And other organizations have started after YOTC started, and there was a lot of motivation from YOTC and other, like I think UOTY, OTYD, and it's just amazing to see the impact when we focus on that close-knit family and our own lives being that way.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. That was very amazing. I just want to point out that I get very jealous because I'm usually out on weekends traveling, so I never get to see them. And if you guys follow their Instagram or their Facebook page, they do everything together. Like they have gatherings, Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I think when Deacon Nebi was saying that it's reached worldwide and not just the DC area, I can attest to that, because when I travel to different states, I get a lot of comments saying like, "Oh my goodness, you have YOTC in DC. You're so very lucky." I'm like, "Yes, I'm very lucky, but I barely attend service." So right now we're in a pandemic, and it's COVID, and I think things are coming back again. Like how has YOTC adapted to COVID, and then like the services that it offers? Because I feel like, I'm not sure, but I think we're gonna either shut down again or have restrictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our physician over here can attest to that.
Well, Zion started off.
Wear your masks, people.
Maybe you can chime in though. Nebi has been in and out. I know he's doing the whole ER thing and also trying to juggle that with YTC. But I would say that in 2020, we definitely had to rely on Zoom, and it was really hard because it's hard. You can't do fellowship online where people actually feel connected the same way they did before. So we had our Zoom meetings, we had our weekly prayer calls where we would, have people volunteer to read prayer on different day. And it's hard because we're not that inclined to, log online and do our services through there. It's not as exciting, but it really made us think, it reminds you that you really need Christ to do every single thing that you do. So it's, you can't rely on friends all the time to be there in person. And feel that excitement of going to church and going to Bible study and seeing your friends. So we really had to rely on Christ throughout this pandemic, and pray that YLTC still holds up and that we are still being consistent. But we had our Zoom meetups. We still had our Bible study course, of course, all through Zoom and YouTube. And yeah, we had to make something out of our laptops and our phones. And that kind of became the new normal, and it's still pretty hard to do. And we were really happy to come back in person. We finally got to have our Bible studies in person. It was exciting, but now, like you guys said, it looks like we're going to have to make that transition back to our laptops and phones. So, again, we just have to rely on Christ and make sure that we are being consistent with our prayer calls, our Bible studies, and keep our service as tight as possible.
That is, I couldn't have said it any better. Like the central part being Christ. That
Yeah.
COVID, as much as it can try, it cannot separate you from Christ. It can separate you from your friends, but at the end of the day, you're gonna be at home, and that is an opportunity to use. And I think um, we've done all the best we can when the pandemic has made it hard.
Yeah. I think even before the pandemic, YOTC has online services, like it'll be live on Facebook or Instagram. So I don't think it was that hard for you guys to transition to just be in your house recording those videos. I wanted to ask something personal, if you guys are willing to answer. Like how did your how do you think about your level of spirituality once you started YOTC? Did it increase? Did it grow?
I guess I can start. I would say that I guess it's not even just that. Not only did it increase, but I would say that my spiritual life like set off when I started YLTC. Because before YLTC, I did go to church. I went with my family every week, but I didn't feel as connected. I was kind of just physically present in the church, and I went because I had to go. And my family is Ethiopian Orthodox, and I'm always gonna be present. But I didn't really feel like I could contribute that much to the faith because it just felt like a physical presence. But YLTC, once I joined YLTC, not only did I feel like that set off my faith, but I actually felt like I felt the connection with God, and I felt very aware and present. And I had other people that can relate with me, like I've mentioned earlier. Having those life groups allowed me to create, accountability partners where I can actually not only do confession and communion, but I know why I'm doing it. So I get the why a lot. When I joined YLTC, I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Before YLTC, I kind of just blindly did things, didn't really understand why I did certain things. Now I know the significance of confession. Now I know how serious it is when if I don't confess for a while, I know that that's a problem, and I feel conviction now, as a YLTC member, now that, the Bible study classes actually pierce my heart, and I feel something when I go to those classes. So, of course, the Sibket Bamaranya and the church, that did something, but it wasn't, again, like Nebi, you said earlier, I think in English. I mean, sometimes I think in Amharic, but the voice in my head is in English. And so when I hear Bible studies in English, I feel, okay, I actually have to do something. I feel more inclined to do something with my spiritual life, and I take it more seriously when I completely understand it. So YTC allowed me to take my faith a lot more serious. And I'm very thankful for that. And one thing I hope never happens, and this is another personal thing, is being complacent is a thing. So again, I started 2017, and I felt on fire in 2017, and now it's 2022, and I can say that there's been times where I felt like my faith was kind of just not as wasn't growing exponentially as it was in the beginning. But again, those accountability partners and those sermons that again make me wake up again, and English Gadase and things like that, those kind of that sparks my faith up again, and making sure that I'm there every week recharges my faith as well. So it kind of prevents me from falling into that complacency.
Yeah, I definitely I echo that the fact that there is a group of people, a lot of times, a lot of people much more on fire and dedicated um, in their spiritual life than myself only drives me to be better. And I can't imagine my how my life would have turned out if I was not involved in with YOTC. I definitely see the the how lucky that I am that God has sort of blessed me with a group of wonderful people like this, that this gathering that uh, you know where one person might not be able to make a difference or might be able to make some difference, but this group is so there's so much passion for God, and these friendships that are built from that, with Christ being the center, is so life giving. So I definitely do reap the benefits and the fruits of that.
Uh, Earlier, thank you guys so much. Earlier, you were talking about the fellowship aspect of the YLTC. I wanted you guys to talk about how it impacted the servants and their relationship. Like, can you discuss how the life groups, informal gathering, and the weekly Sunday afternoon classes have impacted the servants? What kind of feedback are you guys getting from the people that are attending these services?
I'd say whenever we have life groups, people want more. So whenever we go missing from life groups, everyone's like, "Where are life groups?" You know what I mean? That's like the one thing. If all else fails, life groups is something that people are really hungry for. And I would say that to answer your question, life groups for me personally, life groups allowed me to create that family aspect of YLTC. So it's not as easy to create a family when you're just going to Bible studies and you're just seeing each other once a week and you hear a sermon and you go home. Life groups allows you to open up and kind of get personal and talk about your spiritual weaknesses, your spiritual strengths, what you're looking for in YTC, what's not working out for you in your regular life, and you create friendships through informal gatherings. I created really good friendships within YTC through life groups, and through outside of the formal teachings. This is where I got to open up and be vulnerable with my fellow sisters and brothers in Christ. So life groups created a family for me. It created friendship for me. It allowed me to be vulnerable, especially for someone that struggles with vulnerability. This kind of forced me to get out my comfort zone and say, "Hey, let me talk about my spiritual weaknesses. See, if somebody has been there before and who can help me out in that as well." So I would say family is the biggest thing for me within life groups and those informal gatherings.
And if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think we all had we try to have leisure groups as well, like you know doing activities with your fellowship group. It pulls everything else towards Christ. Everything should be Christ oriented ultimately. And so we if it wasn't for the the pandemic again, uh, we were having cookouts in the summer times and meetups and things of that nature that really created that additional connection with the group of people. And the church and the faith doesn't end once the life group ends or once church service ends. We sort of, our goal is to live it throughout 24/7 as we live, uh, and that additional fun part of spirituality is sort of inviting as well, and as it should be, because it's fun. It's just fun time with people that have the same faith and are striving towards a certain spiritual level is really amazing. So that I think that focus with YOTC, where I was saying, like, we're people oriented, we're not goal oriented. So we focus on each other a lot more actual tasks, and sometimes tasks don't get done for that reason. But that's not the goal. The goal are people. So
Yeah.
it's a huge positive impact on the lives of its members.
I feel like there's always a misconception of in the Orthodox or in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Christian Church, there's no fun. Like I feel like the definition of fun has been changed throughout the years, and but the youth they like to have fun, bowling, cooking, having barbecues and things like that. That's how some youth come to the church, things like that. Some events you can have for them. So that's a really good point to mention, Dekon Nebiyu. As we wrap things up, I just wanted to ask if you have a message to the youth that you would love to share.
I can start off. I would say that there is nothing more precious and real than fellowship in Christ. You may develop friendships based on different interests, but more often than not, those interests will fizzle out. When friendships are based on Christ, it's based on eternity. It's eternal, and we really feel that in YLTC. We're so happy when new people come in and join us, regardless of their age, and I would say come and see and use the resources online. But if you're not in the DMV region, I would encourage you to take a leap of faith and be that person to start your own group. It can be 2, 3, 4, and that's how YOTC started. It's life changing, and the impact you'll have both on your own life and others is eternal. And we are here to help in any way that we can based on the few years of experience that we've gathered. But it's we are all growing together.
Yeah, and in addition to what Nebiyu said with regards to fellowship, I would say, well, two things. One, to get an accountability partner, so a friend in the church that you can rely on and that you guys can, say, hey, have you been, when was the last time you confessed, or when was the last time you did communion? Just making sure that you guys are checking in on each other, making sure that you have a friend in the church. Friendship is very important in the church, especially when you're young, because it's easy to be influenced by everything outside of the church and things of the world. So that's definitely very important. And another thing that I really benefited from with YLTC is this is when I got a confession father, and I would say to make sure that you make that a priority to find that confession father. And if you know someone that has one, reach out to them and say, where do I get started? How did you find your confession father? And spread the word, and make sure you and your whole group of friends have a confession father, or someone that a priest that you can trust, and that you can make sure that you are consistent with. Because having a confession father and making sure that I have that in my life is one of the biggest aspects of my faith development over the past few years. So that's the biggest thing that I could say.
Thank you guys very much for joining us today. I'm not sure I can add anything to that. Hopefully, once this whole COVID and the pandemic is over, you guys will join us here in the near future.
ብሔር ጸባኦት አምላክነ